We'll call to order the select board public hearing on the Code of Ethics Investigation and Enforcement Ordinance public hearing. Is there any public comment online or in the room? Welcome to the select board.
Someone want to explain what this is?
Well, I don't think we actually had to do this, but we adopted the ordinance.
I know what it is.
Okay, so we adopted this ordinance 60 days ago, right?
April 16th.
Yeah,
you
and we
adopted the ordinance.
were not entirely certain what the procedures were at that point, and a quick search on the internet indicated that we needed to have a public hearing. That is for zoning bylaws, not for ordinances, municipal ordinances. So I propose that we adopt the ordinance again, which will give the public 60 days or 44 days to file a petition in order to call a special town meeting in order to rescind the ordinance. If that doesn't happen within 44 days, this would become active in 60. That's the
Instructions are in your
Right.
packet, folks.
So do we have the ordinance? Here we go.
So
So
the
it's in
ordinance
here.
was adopted April 16th.
Yeah.
It was not signed at that meeting.
Okay. So I think we should just do it over again.
All right, and I also want to mention too that legally it has to be posted in the newspaper.
Yep.
Not more than 14 days after adoption,
Right. So none of that happened. So
not on time.
right, and it also needs to be posted in 5 public places.
That is correct.
I know this because I've done like 2 of them.
I just want to make sure this is the final draft.
I think so.
And there will not be any more changes.
I think we adopted it already, so I think we're good.
You adopted it with changes, and I just want to make sure this is the final
Okay.
draft. And I do agree with you, Fletcher. That was a test.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt this Code of Ethics Investigation and Ordinance Enforcement Ordinance.
Second.
Any public comment online or in the room? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
There is a copy in your folder to be signed tonight.
Okay. All right, we can close the public hearing and call to order the select board meeting. Any adjustments to the agenda?
I have one. Item 10, Select Board New Business, Local Emergency Management Plan, Annual Renewal.
Sorry to interrupt, there's no sound here.
Hey,
Thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Fairman.
whoops.
Harris?
That's what computers do, they get us to collaborate.
Howard.
Yeah, everything's fine here, thanks.
All right. Just click buttons.
Thank you. Or maybe.
Collaborative.
So what do you want to do with 10A?
Turn off, whatever.
10A, I want to table it. Sorry, it's just not quite there yet.
Okay, but if I get another call from Christy, it's your fault.
You're not the EMD anymore, so.
Tell somebody this.
I'm not worried about Christy, she can call me.
Okay, fine.
All right, select board comments, remarks, communications.
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, because there was no sound, I'm inquiring what happened to agenda item 1?
We adopted, or what did we do? I'll let you explain.
We adopted the Code of Ethics ordinance, and now that it will be open for public comment before it is
It's,
put into practice.
well, the public has 44 days to petition a special town meeting to rescind it.
So this is not actually called to order the select board public hearing.
We've already done that, apparently, on mute.
Well, I can tell you there's a problem here, because the agenda was posted online last Friday. The meeting packet was posted online this afternoon, between when I checked at 4:30 and at 4:36 p.m. You all have day jobs. So do many interested members of the public exercising their constitutional right as per the Vermont Supreme Court in Severson versus City of Burlington, to hear and to be heard regarding each agenda item during duly warned public meetings. No one has had any opportunity to review and consider thoroughly this meeting packet that begins with a public hearing on a new code of ethics investigation and enforcement ordinance that no one could see in its final version before sometime between 4:30 and 4:36 p.m. today, less than 1 hour ago. Had there been sound, I would have respectfully suggested that this public hearing be postponed until June 11th, 2025, regular meeting of our town of Putney Selectboard, so that informed select persons and members of the public may be duly heard and heeded. It appears that I have been overtaken by events, but nevertheless, posting a meeting packet less than 1 hour before the meeting is, I have to say, it cannot be acceptable to anyone, because no one has any time to look at the meeting packet and consider it deliberately before the meeting itself. So, as I understand it, the code has been adopted, but it's open for public comment. Am I correct?
No, not really. Let Eileen explain the situation.
So first of all, we actually adopted this code of ethics 60 days ago.
April 16th.
And due to a misinformation on our part, we thought that we had to have a hearing 60 days from that date. That's not the way that it works. So this code of ethics has been out in the public view in the form of a packet since that time, and has remained largely unchanged. So the public has had plenty of time to review it. So the actual procedure is for us to adopt the code of ethics, which we just did, and then the public has 44 days in order to petition the town to call a special town meeting in order to rescind it. If nobody does that within 44 days, it goes, it becomes effective in 60 days. It also gets posted in 5 public places, and it gets put into the newspaper as a legal notice within 14 days of its adoption.
Thank you, Ms. Tulloch. Notwithstanding that, my comment stands that posting a meeting packet less than an hour before the meeting certainly should not be tolerated. Now, in the policy as you have adopted it, there is actually a serious legal error in, let me see, this is section E. The site to the remote of the meeting law at the end is incorrect. The site has 3 VSA section 313. It actually is 1 VSA section 310.6. Of course, you can incidentally correct that, but 3 VSA is something, it refers to the executive of the state of Vermont.
I mean, it's up to you, but I would say point of order, because we've already done
We can
this.
look into that, yeah.
So as far as comments on this particular piece, I think we've already done that. It was unfortunate that people were on mute, but I think we can move on.
Aaron, you have something to add?
Yeah, so I want to comment about the packet going online, an hour before the meeting today. Our communications liaison has been out sick all week. I have no staff on Friday at all. So the fact that it did go up late, Howard, it is unfortunate, but with a short week, because we had a holiday on Monday, and we had to get things done yesterday in order to be prepared for today. It's unfortunate it happens.
Thank you, Ms. Town Manager. I quite understand the situation, and one might say that it was force majeure. On the other hand, the Vermont Open Meeting Law is unconditional in an informed public participating in meetings.
Well, that certainly is the idea of the law, but the specifics of the law are that the agenda gets posted, not that the packet gets posted,
There's no
but that
expectation.
the agenda gets posted, and it was. I mean, ideally, yes, we provide the public with as much information as possible to make an informed decision, but as Eileen has pointed out, this particular ordinance has been out in public view for months.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. All right, approval of minutes, May 14th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of May, you wanna do May 14th and May 21st at this, are we all here?
You were all there, right?
Right. Approval of minutes of May 14th, 2025 and May 21st, 2025. Skipped ahead of the years.
Changes? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, warrants to the treasurer.
Someone gonna make a motion?
All right. I make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer upon completion of review.
Second.
Thank you. Are we all?
Can we go home now?
I know, it's not even August where it's gonna get so hot in here, we can't stand it. Okay, so accounts payable dated May 17 through May 30th, 2025, in the amount of $104,256.04. There's really nothing like unusual. I do have a request for Rick Pettit. He's the pool person who will be arriving in Putney on June 5th to troubleshoot and fix the main drains in our pool. So maybe we'll have a pool this year. But other than that, not terrible.
The Wyndham Regional Commission zoning bylaw, is that gonna be reimbursed?
No, that's ARPA funds.
That's their portion?
No,
Oh, that's ARPA funds,
yeah,
okay.
those are ARPA funds.
Okay.
Yeah, and those are 2 invoices, so they've been coming late, but I think we're back on track, so. Any other questions? All good. All right, payroll warrant dated May 30th, 2025, in the amount of $18,527.25. On here, you will see the rec director, not the rec director, the rec lead director. We don't have a rec director yet.
Someday.
Someday, yes.
There were no fires?
We did not receive the fire department's payroll.
Okay.
They will be paid in the following warrant, hopefully. I'm in discussions with a couple of people about that. So. It was a short week and not having them on time. So.
Questions? Public comment? All in favor? Town manager's report.
Where is it? Lots going on. So I do want to make an announcement and recognize that the fire department was reinstated on May 24th, 2024, so it's been a year.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good.
and then, of course, EMS was done in August, but I want to personally thank Brian Harlow and everyone in the department for their dedication in bringing this back around. Anyone serving in emergency situations should be recognized and appreciated every day. I have a high level of respect for our Putney Emergency Services Department. And I do want to acknowledge their hard work and dedication. Eric and I met with State Fire Safety Division today to walk through the second floor of the fire department. This is our second walkthrough. Overall, second floor work is good, and I'm meaning the plumbing and the electrical, because you do need certain permits when you're doing construction. So there are no red flags from these inspections. This will prompt us to move forward with completing the construction of that building, which has been ongoing for 20 years. So I'm bringing it up. I want it on record. It's long overdue. And we'll figure out how we're gonna financially do that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I just wonder what the next step that you see, what you see as the next step in that is.
Well, working with the department, we already have an estimate or a quote to finish the second floor. We needed to know that we could move forward if a contractor came in and somebody could pull permits to finish the construction. So we can do that.
But do we have a plan for if we don't have a plan for what we're doing, how do we know what the construction would be?
We have plans, floor plans. It's pretty much already laid out, it just needs to be finished. So ceilings, cabinets for the kitchen area, flooring needs to be put down. A few electrical sockets have to be put back in, but that's something, a contractor can do and get subcontractors to finish the work. We don't have to do anything, we can just leave it the way it's been for 20 years.
And no, I'm just wondering what
What it's going to be used
if the
for.
plan was designed 20 years ago, has it been reevaluated to see how where the plan fits with our contemporary goals for the space? So I'm just curious about, the plan you're referring to, what is it for?
So it's originally was set up for training facility and emergency operations center. There are rooms for bunks that people stay overnight. This is a deeper conversation with the fire department and the emergency management director, Len Howard, and with this board.
So would it be fair to say then that the next step is to get a plan for what the use of the space is? An updated plan for what the, is that, I mean, it seems,
It's a good
it doesn't make
question.
sense to me to go with a 20-year-old plan. And the plan you're describing, it doesn't, you know, it's unclear to me how that fits into our current realities here. So I think maybe the next step would be for the people you're talking about, the department and you and whoever else, you know, comes
plan.
forward with a plan.
I just want to remind everyone too that we do have a lease agreement with the state of Vermont, and that is coming up to renew. It was a 20-year lease agreement. So, and there is a clause in there, it can be used for municipal and emergency services. So, can it be altered? I'm sure, but you know, the question is, you're right, finishing that building, what is the plan and what is the use going to be that will support?
Right. So that, it just seems like to do the construction before we have the plan doesn't make sense, that the plan needs to come before the
Maybe by
work.
construction, because it is,
work on,
it is framed, you know, it's framed in sheetrock, so there's not much changing for anything.
but kitchens and things, you know, like,
It's all set up, I mean, everything's kind of in place. If
The
we-
floor plan is
Yeah.
pretty much in place by the,
So it's just
the
finishing the
design.
work to make it a usable space.
usable for what though, is what
Well, to make
I,
it legal for, you know, occupancy use. You know, the electrical done, ceilings put in.
but occupied for what purpose? I guess I'm not
Yeah,
advocating for
okay,
anything in particular. I don't have a plan for what it should be used for. I just think that I would request that we have a clear plan for its use, before we do any further work on it, so that we know whether the work we're doing is in alignment with what the plan for the space is. That just seems kind of reasonable.
I think
Me.
we can put it on paper. The construction is not gonna start right away anyway. To be
Is there a-
finished.
Blueprint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a start. But I agree with Peg, that, you know, it would make sense to identify what the uses of that space would be before, well, ideally before any construction had happened at all. But I mean, I can think of a lot of uses for that second floor. And emergency services is one of them, but I could think of, you know, town office space, emergency sheltering for the public. I mean, there are lots of different things, and those different uses have different construction needs, potentially. Maybe they don't, but maybe they do. So,
I guess we need to sit down and put together a plan. We needed to get the state's blessing, because the electrical work that had been done, there was no permit for it
Yeah.
prior, so,
Right.
you know, they
It
have
would be good to-
potential to make us tear it all down and show them the electrical work.
Well, I'm very thankful for that.
Right.
I don't get me wrong, I'm super thankful for that. I just would like to have a plan before we proceed with spending more money on anything that we don't have a plan for. So,
Howard has his hand up.
You want to finish your report?
Oh, sure. Get distracted. Yeah, let's see, I'm catching up on zoning. I have 3 permit extensions for construction time. We usually allow 1 year. I have 1 amendment to an approved site plan, 1 subdivision that requires review and DRB hearing, 2 letters to rate the zoning completed without applications, and a proposed land development of 5 cabins. So zoning continues to be active, and I try to dedicate one day a week to doing something. Making progress on the personnel policy, so Kim and I are meeting with the consultant. We meet on Tuesdays for 2-hour sessions, so we've been going over the policy like line item by line, or section by section. She's really good, she has a lot of good ideas, and yeah, I'm excited to finally get that finalized, and there may be some questions that I'll bring back to the board, but right now we're making progress. I gave you a pool update on Rick Pettit, so, you know, ultimately June 13th, the repair can be done. We'll have to fill the pool by the 16th. The opening day is scheduled for June 21st. So, keep your fingers crossed, 'cause
Summer solstice.
yeah. I have 3 grants for engineering planning of 3 structures here in Putney. They're, all 3 are bridge structures. So we're gonna get, probably we're gonna end up doing a request for proposal, because they're $18,000 each.
For which, for bridges?
Yeah, so Sand Hill, Old Stage, and the culvert down on River Road just below Priest Drive.
Oh, that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one. So Lenny and I are working together. The engineering and planning, it's all on paper, so it's not like we have to be out in the field to get ready to do the work. So I'll keep you posted on that. Parkman Wood Road, we're waiting on the stream alteration permit, but this project will go out to bid next week. The work needs to be completed by September 30th and of this year. And the gravel pit crushing and blasting request for proposal will go out on June 2nd. And all of that work will close out in October. I will keep this board informed, especially when I get to the blasting piece of it. So hopefully we can have a schedule that everybody will be able to be reminded when things are gonna happen. Let's see. I have several grants in motion. 2 need to be closed out. One's for the generator and the other one's for the municipal planning grant that we just completed for the housing needs assessment. And I'm waiting on 2 grant agreements from the state. So I think there might be 1 or 2 other ones that are just kind of out there as well. Grand list abstract on Tuesday will be launched next week. Listers they were waiting for the utilities value from the state. They finally got that. It came in at a good number, which is very exciting. So anyone with a change of value will receive a letter to grieve. Those letters are going out probably next week. And if anyone has a change of mailing address or a name change, please notify town hall. Otherwise, you may not get your letter and you may appeal too late, or grieve too late. So please make sure your address is up to date with town hall or name change.
You can also grieve regardless of whether you have a change of value every year, just so the public knows that. You know, what's our CLI, do you know?
No, I do not know.
I could find out.
Mr. Fairman, you've been waiting.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. This is Vermont, life in the slumland. First, 2 points. First, I want to compliment our town manager and the highway department. Monday morning, I let them know that opposite Noy's house, the ground next to the sidewalk was starting to slide into the ditch. And a crack was opening so that between the ground and the sidewalk, so the next thing was the ground would slide out from under the sidewalk. And as of today, it's been fixed, so they did quick and good work. Concerning the second floor of the fire station, I was unaware of what Mr. McGowan has thankfully mentioned to us, that it's partially built up there already. I've never been up there. I agree with Ms. Alden that we probably should should at least review, if not revise, a 20-year-old plan. And like Ms. Tuller, I have heard that one possibility is that there be an emergency shelter up there for whatever purpose, which could include something like someone's house burns down, or there's been a flood in some part of town. I've also heard in a private discussion that there's some possibility of it becoming the temporary town hall during the town hall renovations, which I guess at some point might make the place uninhabitable. So good to know that all these things are in progress, and let's update the plan, because 20 years is a long time ago. Thanks.
Thank you. Smith?
I just wanted to ask about the personnel policy. I know that was something the Equity Inclusion Advisory Committee had consulted with you on a few years ago, and offering if that's something you want to do again and continue to include us in that. Are you still working with Adaptiva, or have you switched?
No, we switched
Cool,
to
okay.
someone else. When we get a draft, I can email it to you
Great, happy to help, whatever that looks
if you
like.
want to take a look at it. That's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Not my specialty, but
Mine neither, but we'll try.
all right.
Any other public comment on the town manager's report? Alright. Boards, committees, and commissions. DVFiber status report.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gord Trowbridge, and I'm here to report about DVFiber, which for those of you who are new on the board, is another word for the Deerfield Valley Communications Union District. And these districts were formed all over Vermont about 5 years ago. Ours is 24 towns, all of Windham County, 3 towns of Bennington County, and the town of Weston. And the purpose being to provide a publicly owned internet to every unserved and underserved E911 address, in theory. Anyway, so I am your Putney rep. I'm a volunteer, and that means I attend a meeting once a month where the executive director and the board chair, who are here tonight, update us on everything. So I vote on behalf of the town. And if anybody's listening, if you would like to be an alternate rep, that would be great. Mike Rowicki stepped down from that position, so I'm the only one right now. So when I can't go, Putney's not represented. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our new executive director, Patrick Moreland, for an update on what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Cord. And actually, Cord did a great job of introducing DVFiber and its purpose. We are, of course, a single-purpose municipality, and we're a public internet utility. And I guess the point I would like to make right off the bat is we are grateful that you've chosen to be a member town, and we appreciate that you've identified Cord Trowbridge, who I've known for decades, and I can say that she's a tremendous asset to the organization and represents Putney well. So thank you for appointing her to that position. It's much appreciated. So in terms of what are we up to today? At the end of April, we have completed a little over 250 miles of our fiber optic network. And what's kind of exciting is in that process, we have also achieved a specific milestone, that being that we've received our 1,000th customer. So that's something worthy of celebration, and you know, operating in a place like rural southeastern Vermont, I think it's quite an accomplishment. We are currently providing service in Stamford, Halifax, Reedsboro, Whitingham, and portions of Marlborough. But the question is rarely, where are you delivering business today, but rather, you know, when are you going to be doing that here? And I think the difficult answer is we don't exactly know. The good news is that DVFiber is the only internet service provider that has a plan for how to build out and reach every unserved and underserved location in our entire 24-town municipality. So that, I think, is a benefit. But again, what drives us? How do we know where to go next and what sort of governs that sort of thing? And in general terms, we rely upon sound engineering and the priorities inherent in our funding source. At this moment in time, the phase 1 construction that includes those towns I identified was funded by a grant from the Vermont Community Broadband Board, and it was made up principally of ARPA dollars. And because of that, the priority was that we were to serve in their entirety the highest concentration of unserved and underserved locations, which explains why we started in Stamford and moved on to Reedsboro and so on. So one of the other things I think is kind of interesting to point out about our development style is that while our funding source may be directing us to serve individual municipalities, our development model is a little bit more blind to political geography. And what I mean by that is Halifax was identified as one of the highest concentrations of unserved or underserved locations. But because of the engineering plan that we have for the entire region, in order to serve Halifax, it required us to cross the border into Guilford. And so there's portions of Guilford where we're already delivering service. We're not necessarily just going to stop at the town line because we've been funded to run high-speed broadband to Halifax. We're going to follow the engineering as far as it goes. And so while we've been funded to serve those principal towns, we've bled over into other towns a little bit based on the engineering of how we're going to serve our 24 towns. So while we may not know exactly when we're going to get to Putney, we do have reason to be hopeful. And I was hoping you might circulate this to the board members. I've got a couple others if anybody in the audience is interested. A number of years ago, the federal government set aside, through the United States Congress, set aside nearly $43 billion because they finally recognized the importance of delivering high-speed broadband to rural portions of the United States. Not just Vermont, but all over the USA, but that also then includes Putney. The map that I've circulated is really, it's pretty high level. It's intended to show what has been identified as the underserved and unserved portions. It obviously doesn't get into addresses or anything like that. It doesn't even show road names, but it does give you a sense of the scale of what is called the BEAD program would be able to address within your town. So I think that's pretty significant. The state of Vermont has been working on its BEAD application to the federal government for a couple of years now. And recently, there was a very special deadline. That deadline was for internet service providers like DVFiber and others to submit their proposals to the state for how we would propose to serve that particular area. It's a competitive process that's open to any internet service provider. And the state of Vermont is now reviewing those submissions. The one thing that I would say is hopeful, particularly for Putney, is that according to the VCBB's press release just after that April 16th deadline, about 96% of the communities in Vermont had at least one proposal put forward by an internet service provider. We've got good reason to believe that there may be more than one for a place like Putney. So if this grant program proceeds as scheduled and grants are awarded under the BEAD program, that would require that these locations on this map here be served within 4 years' time. So while there's been a lot of fits and starts to rural broadband, as I think anybody who's been living here for any length of time would certainly acknowledge, there's at least hope at this moment in time that we're nearing the end of that phase of life. So that's kind of our update. And I'm here, and Steve and John and Cora are here, and if we can answer any questions for you, I'd be happy to.
I did want to mention one thing which I forgot in my introduction, which is that the town doesn't have any financial obligation as part of this program. So that's one of the reasons that we as a town decided to join 5 years ago. So we're really getting a great benefit out of this program.
I'll just add, nor any liability for the future. Okay, because, CORE represents you more than adequately on our board. As Patrick says, a real asset to our board. But keep in mind that the board, the governing board, the people that you appoint, are those that will make the decisions about where we build next, what grants we accept, under what terms and conditions, and if we borrow money, which we're trying to stay out of, to build something, that would have to be by vote of the board approved. So that's the importance of this representative board on our function and authority and that's established by statute. That authority cannot be delegated to an executive director or anything else. That's all our meetings are public, and just like this, we have some of the same difficulties. We have to have an office now that's available. Our office is in Wilmington. It's in the old high school in Wilmington, if you're familiar with the town. We have a classroom, it's a little bigger than this, but it's the same kind of scene with nice big windows. And we have our meetings there as a place where people can access, handicap access and all that. But most of our business is done remotely. In fact, for the first 2 years, we were just entirely remote. And if we hadn't been so, I don't think our board could have met sufficiently to take action and have discussion. So, COVID giveth and taketh away, but that's one of the gifts.
So you said that more than one internet provider might be bidding on the grant. Once they run the fiber, who owns it?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Eileen.
Once the internet provider runs the fiber, who owns the fiber? Is that the internet provider, or what I'm getting at is if, say, Fidium Fiber comes in and they run the fiber to my house.
Yep.
Am I locked into Fidium, or can I switch over to DVFiber?
Well, we would be, if a different service provider wins the award for Putney, then they would have the money to build out to Putney, and we would not. So it would be.
But say I want to subscribe to internet provider, and I'm in the district, and so theoretically I can sign up with DVFiber. Can I still sign up with you, or do I have to sign up with the other internet provider?
Well, I guess the distinction I would want to place in your thinking is that you can sign up with us, but if Fidium's the one delivering service to your location, then signing up with us isn't going to be in your best interest. If what you're seeking is the service, if they win the contract for this area, then they would be building out in this area, certainly well ahead of us. Whether or not we're able to get here and whether or not it makes sense once it's already considered served would be a different calculation we'd need to make in the future.
I have an illustration for that. I think it gets to your point. As Patrick reported, Marlboro is only partially served.
Right.
That's because Fidium built out to a part of town, western part of Marlboro, coming up from Wilmington. And so those locations are now claimed by Fidium. Whether people have taken the service or not, they're claimed by Fidium. So our ARPA grant money can't go to build that part of my town. I represent Marlboro. So the question that you pose is one that this board, governing board, will have to consider looking forward, maybe 5 years down the line, 2, 3 years, whatever. Specifically regarding Putney, if an alternate provider wins the award, the money to connect your locations, and it's not us, then it won't be a municipally owned and operated network. It'll be a private company that put in bids, because this program, BEAD program, is open to a competitive bid between any entity, public or private. And so in my case, as representing my town, I'm asking my folks that live on those roads that are served by Fidium, if you're interested in having an alternate service, then we have to raise money privately by donation or cookie sales or what, I'm just kidding, but you have to come up with the money that's not part of the grant. And our board certainly isn't gonna vote to borrow money to go into debt to compete with Fidium in a place like Marlboro unless there's a sufficient interest in having an alternate service. Brookline is a town that's pretty small. They have 95% of their people are served by fiber, by cable. And they still joined our CUD because they want an alternate service in there. And there are some unserved addresses there, like on this map, not as many certainly in Brookline, but that are under our universal service plan and been approved by our design to reach them. Funding is the question. It's really a question of how long it'll take us to get there. That's the question. And it won't be by grant funding if before we get there, Fidium or some other competitor is providing fiber.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, my question, which I'm always asking, has to do with what gives you confidence that these grants, particularly that originate at the federal level, will be available to us given the current reality?
I think the answer to that is we haven't heard otherwise. And so, together with the other CUDs, with the other internet service providers across the state and with state government, until such time as we learn things are going to change, we're going to presume that the will of Congress will move forward. So, just sort of speaking for myself, I've got to believe there's 50 state governors out there that would like some portion of, $43 billion of infrastructure investment in their state. And so, we have no reason to believe that it is going to be fundamentally turned on its head, but, we are living in interesting times.
Yeah.
Mr. Fairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, a question to the speakers. How many addresses currently are unserved in Putney?
It says 96, according to this.
Well, glad you asked. In terms of underserved, there's 117, and in terms of unserved, there are 96. And this is based on the FCC's national broadband data.
Okay, thank you. My comment is, really what we're learning here is that DVFiber has been unable to do many things for Putney and really does not know when it will be able to do something for Putney. Meanwhile, Comcast Xfinity is offering superb broadband in at least parts of Putney. I have their lowest level of service, and I have consistently measured 83 megabits per second download, 12 megabits per second upload, which is more than adequate for just me. Now, meanwhile, Consolidated Communications, doing business as Fidium, is building out their network in Dummerston, which of course is, I'm looking at Dummerston right now out my window. So the questions seem to be whether we should invite Comcast Xfinity and Consolidated Fidium to make proposals to serve those addresses in Putney, should they wish to do so. Now, of course, they might say, we're not interested, but at least then we would know that we have to wait for DVFiber. Because let's say one of them, I'm betting on Comcast, would say, actually, we would like to bid on that. There's quite possibly that we could get service to those 200 addresses in Putney that are underserved or unserved, well within the time that DVFiber would take to do it. So I'm formally suggesting that someone ask those two companies, Comcast and Consolidated, to propose serving those addresses in Putney, to give them the option to say no, or alternatively, we'd like to do it, and here's what we'll charge you which of course might not be anything, because they can finance their own expansions if they want to. And in the case of Consolidated, they've recently been taken over by private equity. So chances are they have quite a bit of money available. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And one of the things I would say is if you're happy with your existing service provider, you're very fortunate. The point I would like to make about, we're not here this evening asking for the Putney Select Board to support us and not support somebody else. I understand that, you folks want to see broadband infrastructure in your community, and that makes sense. I think supporting and being a member of DVFiber doesn't cost you anything. And, in the end, we are looking out for your interests, but if somebody gets here first, that's certainly something we've had to live with in other areas like Marlboro. It could come to pass that we need to live with that here in Putney as well. And what I would also mention, Mr. Fairman, is that each of the other service providers you mentioned are likely competing for this BEAD grant for Putney's unserved locations. It is not merely limited to a CUD or a public corporation like DVFiber. It was open to any and all service providers.
I have trouble with the terminology because we split back and forth between fiber and broadband, but in fact, cable also is a broadband provider. So, and my understanding is that I have tried to get them to come to my location repeatedly, and they always say no. My preference would be to have fiber. But my understanding, when you say it costs us nothing, my understanding is that one of the reasons they're reluctant to come into Putney is because they're concerned about Deerfield Valley coming in and stealing their lunch, that they won't get enough out of it to come in. So their reticence right now is basically limiting us to cable broadband, which frankly, I'm not satisfied with my service. So I do think there is a cost to us in this, and particularly if DVFiber it's not on your horizon, 4 years out is almost an eternity in the internet. But if that's not something within your planning range, then we're sort of stuck with what I consider to be less desirable service and no competition. So I have to say that I don't think it's completely without cost to us.
So I would be highly surprised if by being a member of DVFiber, we are scaring another service provider away from investing in this area if, for example, they see sufficient return on investment by expanding here. I know that each of the internet service providers that can reach this location have had the ability to apply for the federal funds that have been allocated for this town. I think other privately owned companies are typically much, much larger than DVFiber. We are a pipsqueak in comparison to Comcast or some other significant provider like that. They can mobilize private resources from within their holdings that we cannot. We're a public entity. Like you, our meetings are public. It's very public what financial resources we have. What we've got that they don't have is the desire to serve even that last mile location. Whereas private providers tend to cherry pick real concentrations of population, and the folks up in the hill or out the river road, we're not interested in that. So I don't see that as a downside, and I think, your continued participation with the CUD is a good thing.
Well, I beg to differ. I do see it as a downside. I mean, if you, which I just did a day ago, looked at the map of the fiber build out in this area, you'll see tentacles coming in to parts of Putney, but basically it's a big blank. There's nobody building out, particularly for residential fiber. And the density issue, there's nobody building out right here, downtown Putney. I'm not talking about way up on top of Putney Mountain and the cost benefit of that. They don't see the financial incentive to come into our densest area of population.
And they haven't. That's why we're having this conversation, because that's true not just in Putney, but across all 24 member towns. Not all portions of Brattleboro, mind you, but there are significant numbers of unserved and underserved locations, even in a town like Brattleboro. While the downtown area is, littered with internet options, portions of the rural, portions of West Brattleboro and small pockets in the north and small pockets in the south are equally unserved as the unserved and underserved locations here in Putney. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with Fletcher. I do believe that the Fidium, for example, they are never going to run fiber to my house, even though I live pretty close to town, because it's not worth it to them. There's only one house on my road. So they will never do that. So the advantage of the CUDs is that you will run fiber to my house, even though it isn't worth it to you. So I see no disadvantage here.
Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, building on a couple of things that Mr. Proctor has said. First, Mr. Proctor, I live near you in Putney Village, and a few months ago, I got a 40% speed increase. So I'm wondering whether there may be something wrong with the service to your place, because when they after they bought the system from Southern Vermont Cable, you may recall there were contractors' trucks and Xfinity trucks everywhere in Putney. They rebuilt the network, and then they upgraded it last summer, and after that I got this speed increase. So there may be something wrong in your house. And to clarify a couple of points that you, a couple of questions that you raised implicitly, broadband refers to speed. And it can be delivered via copper wires, which is the old technology that dates back from original telephones, or fiber, or of course wireless, as in 4G or 5G or pretty soon 6G on your cell phone, which can be not that bad. So it is not necessarily that we don't have high-speed internet in Putney. It may be that people need to check out getting it via a cell phone. But in any event, fiber, of course, is the way to go, because copper wire is intrinsically limited due to the laws of physics. But once again, if you're not getting superb broadband service and you're a Comcast customer, ask them why not, because I will vouch that it's possible. And I'm sure we're all on the same network here in this little village. Thank you.
Mr. Fairman, I do know that you walk by my house regularly, and I would invite you to come in and take a look. I'll sit down and give you coffee or tea, and we can talk over why it's not working for you.
Well, actually, sir, I might take you up on that invitation, not because I doubt you, but because I actually have been involved in engineering data transmission since 1966. So yes, I do understand what's going on, and might be able to take a look at your system and say, there could be something wrong here. So yes, I accept your invitation.
It was not a facetious offer. I'm aware of your background.
Oh, I never ever consider you as being facetious in public meetings.
I try to restrain myself.
One thing that we've been kind of surprised, or not surprised by, but remarked about as the communications union districts have been formed, is that it actually has generated more private investment in reaching farther into the community by these other commercial companies because they are looking at it as, hey, these guys are going to be served, so why don't we get their business? So it actually,
Certainly true in Marlboro and Wilmington.
I feel like
Lake Rapanda.
in some ways this investment by the federal government has really just spurred private investment. Whereas, you know, like, and then what's left for the CUDs is really like rural electrification, you know, to bat cleanup on the locations that are just too expensive for any commercial entity to take on. So I see them as being complementary. I mean, in a competitive way. Stephen, did you have something you want to say?
No, I said it. The example you present is in our district in Marlboro and in parts of Wilmington, Lake Rapanda, they're recently built out. And that's no doubt because they saw that DVFiber had specific plans to connect those people and serve the people in those parts of those communities. It can work both ways, but it's good.
Any other comments from the select board?
Just thanks for bringing all that information. I learned a lot.
Well, those of us who are volunteering on the board learn a lot every day. Because, you know, we recognize we're not doing the work, but we're just, you know, being holding ourselves responsible for getting it done and really fulfilling our mission. And if you're going to fulfill a mission and you've got no time limit where you fall off the cliff, you just got to stay at it, persistent and patient. And we will continue to do that in a public service board.
If anybody would like to join the board as the Putney alternate, please contact me. Or contact Karen.
As one of those docs, thank you for what you do.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, moving on.
You don't have to stay, Patrick. Unless you want to.
Well, yeah, I might actually. Good to see you, Karen.
Same here. Take care.
Inclusion Advisory Committee.
So I'm here to make two statements, one for Juneteenth and one for Pride Month, and then also make a request for flags flying in June and July. Do you have a preference on what I do first? Okay, I'm gonna start with the statements. So these were written by our newest member, Han Bingham Brunner, professor at Landmark, who's just dived into the committee, and we're very appreciative for the diving. Also just sharing that we had a really amazing community supper event, which was a huge success. It was a rainy day, we thought no one would show up. It was probably 200 people there and we ran out of food, and it was really amazing. So June is, so these are both written by them. June is Pride Month. It's time to celebrate, remember, honor, and protect S2 LGBTQ+ people. We celebrate. Pride Month is a celebration where queer people can claim their identity and show their pride. We come together as a community, queers and allies, to celebrate who we are and the progress our community has made. We remember. During Pride Month, we remember those who have come before to pave the way for the rights and progress we enjoy today. We also remember those who have passed in the AIDS epidemic, suicides, and fatal acts of violence. We honor the sacrifices of the 2 LGBTQ+ people over the years and today. We protect. This year, even more than recent years, we must remember that visibility without protection is a trap. As Vermonters, we are lucky to be in a safer place than most S2 LGBTQ+ peoples, and we cannot take that for granted. This Pride Month, the Equity Inclusion Advisory Committee requests that the town fly the Progress Pride flag during the month of June, as well as the non-binary pride flag during Non-Binary Peoples Day on July 14th. I can read the flag requests again in the end. And then Juneteenth. So Juneteenth is, this year we celebrate the 160th anniversary of June 19th, which seems like a long ways away, but also really recently. It blows my mind how recent slavery was. So in 1865, on June 19th, the day that the word of the Emancipation Proclamation reached the last enslaved people in Galveston, Texas. Juneteenth is a celebration of the end of slavery in the United States. It celebrates not the day that slavery was outlawed, but instead the day that some of the last people still enslaved were told of their freedom. It was almost, I think, 2 years from my memory. It was like years later. Along with celebrating the end of slavery, Juneteenth is a day to celebrate Black resilience, reflect on the legacy of slavery and the fight for equality, and renew our commitment to a more just future. This year for Juneteenth, the Equity Inclusion Advisory Committee requests that the Juneteenth flag be flown at in the town of Putney on June 18th, 19th, and 20th to celebrate and mark our observance of Juneteenth. Those are 2 statements. June's a busy month. And then July is 2.
I have a question. S2 LGBT.
Yeah, so Two-Spirit, I can go through the acronym. And there's actually, I think there's 2 Qs if you want to go really long, but let me go back to because there's queer and there's questioning. So 2S is Two-Spirit. It's an indigenous way of saying people that are non-binary or trans, but it's a term that's the English translation of an indigenous concept that's been around for thousands of years. And then L is lesbian, G is gay, B is bisexual, T I think is trans. There's a second T and a second Q, so they put a plus to be inclusive and not make us stay at all. Because there's an A, there's all of it.
Can I see your flag policy?
Yeah, my memory is that for single days, we fly for 3 days.
I'm wondering how many flags were. I think we.
And that I meant to look that up too.
I think we limited it to one flag.
Right, I was thinking that, I meant to look it up and I forgot that we would take down the pride flag for those 3 days and put up the Juneteenth flag and then put the pride flag back up. Which, if it's a person power to do it, I will do it. Or you could also make an amendment that we would fly 3 flags, or I guess it's, I don't know how much space there is. So do you want to read the specific requests for the flags, because you could do it as a slate or individually?
Let me.
You want to read first, sorry.
Are these alphabetical or? Ooh, they are. Nice. Let's see what we say here. They should be flown in the following order. They must not be larger. We own them.
I'm looking as well.
Commemorative flags should be displayed one at a time and not displayed simultaneously. Commemorative flags will be displayed in the order that they are approved by Select Board resolution. That's a little confusing if we're taking one down and putting it back up a couple days later.
I guess that's up to you folks. I'm happy to do the person
I guess that would
power
be
hoisting.
Are you the one that takes them down as well?
Huh?
Do you personally?
It's Karen and I check in, and whoever's around closest to the pole
I
has.
think there has been some issues with that. Is that
Well, they have stayed up longer than they're
Yes.
supposed to, so.
like a week or plus? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, happy to be. Yeah, I've been more on the getting them up than the getting them down, and happy to help with that too.
I'm wondering too, if it might just be easier to hand all the flags to SWIFT and the Equity and Inclusion Committee, and they can raise and lower the flags.
I think they should be responsible for that.
I don't mind handing them all over to,
I'm fine with storing the flags at my house if that's easier. If that seems simpler.
yeah.
Let me read the statement. I think I wrote it as like a whole, like something that someone could enact. So, the Equity Inclusion Advisory Committee requests to fly these 4 flags for Juneteenth, S2 LGBTQ+ Pride Month, and the Non-Binary Day and Disability Awareness Month, or it's Disability Independence Month. So the pride flag will be for the month of June, Juneteenth, coming down for the days of Juneteenth, which would be the 18th, 19th, and 20th, and then going back up. And then in July, the disability pride flag would fly for the request. Those don't overlap. Non-binary People's Day is on the 14th, so the non-binary flag would go up on the 13th and down on the 15th. And then National Disability Independence Day is on July 26th, so the flag would go up on the 25th and down on the 27th. And we're writing more formal statements for those in July.
So we
That's
work-
the request. Yeah, it was a lot. It was
Okay, so we need to,
I'm writing this.
you're writing it.
I'm trying to.
Do you want me to repeat any part?
I'm gonna repeat it back as soon as I think I understand what you're doing here. All right, so the proposed motion would be, I move to fly the pride flag from June 1st to June 30th, the Juneteenth flag from June 18th to June 20th, the non-binary People's Day, non-binary people?
Pride flag, non-binary
This is the-
pride flag.
The non-binary pride flag from July 13th to 15th, and the National Disability Independence Day flag from July 25th to 27th.
It's also it's the disability pride flag.
National Disability Pride flag.
It's just disability pride flag, sorry.
Okay. So,
I actually think you didn't mention that the one flag
Yeah,
would
would
come
go down and then
the
up.
other one went up.
do you think I need to do that? Our flag policy already says that we only flag
Okay.
at the time, so
Yeah,
I thought that would,
that works.
that's already written down.
Great.
Okay. So I move that we fly the pride flag from the Progress pride flag from June 1st to June 30th, the Juneteenth flag from June 18th to June 20th, the non-binary pride flag from July 13th to July 15th, and the National Disability Pride flag from July 25th to July 27th.
Second.
Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. So just I think that there's a few of them that have to be purchased. I think non-binary and disability, but I think we own Juneteenth. We might need to purchase, and then we own pride flag. So those are the two that are first, and
Okay.
I did it in June, because now
Good
it's ready
job.
for July. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Alright, for table number 10, select board old business. Old Route 5 traffic calming request to reduce speed limit.
So in your packet is information on Old Route 5. There are a couple correspondences regarding considering changing the speed limit to a lower speed limit. We did have a traffic study done a few years back, back in 2021. That information is in your packet. Given that the Alice Holloway construction in that road is, closes sporadically, there has been a lot of extra traffic on Old Route 5. Per the request of the select board, there's a three-way stop sign at Carroll Brown and at that intersection on both sides, north and south of Old Route 5. There is considerable, concern about safety with the increased traffic. The select board does have a traffic ordinance, and that also is in your packet.
It is.
It is.
I missed it.
It should be at the end of,
After the study?
yes. so traffic code for the town of Putney, it was adopted back in
Back when typewriters were a thing.
March 28th, 2018.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Later than that.
So it has been changed once since I've been here. We did change the speed limit on Westminster Road. I will stress again that we are gonna be dipping into a comprehensive village study, and traffic calming will be part of that report, but we won't see the results of that study until next year.
So,
And then.
oh, we do have, okay, I was wondering if we had just designated like certain areas in town a certain way, but it does look like we actually do specify some highways.
Correct.
So that makes it a lot easier, I think, to, insert, a specific road if we wanted to.
I meant to grab the traffic study from the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust project, because in there was a defined speed limit that Alice Holloway should be reduced.
But it's not Alice Hall, well, Alice Holloway is one part of it, but it's the old Route 5
And
specifically.
Carol Brown. That whole area really needs to be looked at, and
Yeah.
I think the timing of the project is a time for this board to consider looking at that whole area and suggesting to reduce the speed limit on Old Route 5, Carol Brown, and Alice Holloway, all at the same time.
Well, I'm wondering because of the, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm wondering because of the construction that's going on and there is more traffic on Route 5, Old Route 5, whether we could make a temporary adjustment to the ordinance for just that piece of the road. Because Alice Holloway Drive is largely closed.
Right.
We don't really care what we care, but there's not much to do there. Carol Brown Way is,
The co-op.
yeah.
Yeah.
And pretty congested, so, I mean, we could formally say
Is
that
there
the
a
speed limit is
speed limit
25 or
there?
something.
Do we have?
We're just gonna, yeah,
Yeah,
if it's not posted,
It's not posted as 35, isn't it?
Well, so Old Route 5 is 35. Any town road
okay,
is 35.
Unless it's specifically mentioned here.
okay.
Right. And I think too, just because Alice Holloway is closed, it's still being used
Yeah,
when it's open. So
Right.
I think you need to look at that whole area. My suggestion is to look at the entire area.
okay, I mean, I just think that if we did a temporary adjustment to this ordinance for those 3 roads to say, the speed limit is 25 or 20 or something like that, can we go lower than 25?
Whatever we say.
I don't know, in New Hampshire, if you go down below a certain thing, it doesn't count, like, you can only go down to like 20 or something,
That's
I don't,
Yeah.
I know, that's
So-
what I'm asking,
I mean,
so.
25, I think we would have to look at the rules for, traffic. I don't really know. 25 is reasonable. If you go to 20, then, are you gonna have the sheriff's department and state police out there, because,
Somebody went
people,
25 instead of 20.
people are not gonna do 20 miles an hour. And, today, electric bikes are faster than 20 miles an hour.
They are not either.
She knows.
They stop at 20 and then you have to pedal, so.
Alright, well,
If they're over 20, then you have to register them as a vehicle.
the other thing too is, that 3-way intersection, that needs to be in that temporary, ordinance as well.
Do you have this as a Word document?
I certainly do.
I'll take a stab at it. Maybe we can put it on next
Agenda.
and just approve those
Temporary.
temporary. Is 25 agreed?
if we get complaints down there regardless of construction, is 25, is it worth changing it altogether and just leaving it at that?
It's not 25 now.
No, we're changing to 25.
Yeah, just change.
Permanently.
Well, we could do it permanently, but I'm just saying a temporary adjustment to this until the construction is done, and then we should really look at that whole area and look at this whole ordinance that was written in 2018. Just a real quick update to the ordinance is what I'm thinking.
Right, so once you have the village comprehensive
Yeah.
study, then that will give you hopefully more information. And then you can change it at that time.
Of course, it doesn't take effect until 60 days afterwards.
Right.
So if we could do it the next term. So if you give me that, I'll take that on.
Mr. Fairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at, last September, I looked in, we were talking about speed limits then, I looked into it. And I wrote for you folks dated September 4th, and I'm going to recall two things from it. First, there is a mandatory national standard which states, and I quote, "Signs indicating speed limits for which posting is required by law shall be located at the points of change from one speed limit to another," unquote. And I wrote here regarding Old Route 5. Entering village limits via Old Route 5, where the posted speed limit is 35 miles per hour, drivers turning onto Route 5 northbound do not see a posted 30-mile-per-hour speed limit until they are approaching Putney Diner. Drivers turning onto Route 5 southbound never see a posted 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. To these drivers, the speed limit in Putney Village is 35 miles per hour, not 30 miles per hour as seen by other drivers in both lanes. Now, regarding the mandatory national standard, I'm beginning to realize that maybe I may need to look into how this national standard could be enforced in Putney, because we need to do some work on our speed limit signs. I'll give you an example. Northbound on Route 5, the missing 30-mile-an-hour sign when you're coming out of Old Route 5, the reason it's missing is because it's posted about 30 feet too far south. So in other words, you could pull it up, move it about 30 feet north, and that would solve that problem. Now, turning around and heading south, there needs to be a 30-mile-an-hour sign there. Now, this is all, you talk about traffic studies all you want, but really the people who are complaining are not the people who are driving vehicles, which are the subject of traffic studies. They are the people who are walking, the people who are running, the people who are riding bicycles, and anything like that, where they're not in a vehicle and they are truly vulnerable. If you get hit by a vehicle, there's no question who's going to lose. So we really do need to look more closely at the speed limits we're setting in the town of Putney in terms of people's safety who are not in vehicles. And I am going to look into the question of how we get the federal standard enforced in Putney, because so far nobody has wanted to do anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fairman. In reference to the signs on Route 5, that I believe is the state's jurisdiction. We don't, our highway department in town, we don't have any legal standing to set those.
Yes, I know that, and so therefore that's why presumably the state enforces the federal standard, so they would have to abide by it as well. You're absolutely correct, sir.
Thank you.
You have another hand up.
Elizabeth?
Hi, while we're at it with the signage, I'm hoping that the sign that indicates that it's one way, says do not turn left, coming out of the co-op parking lot, could be addressed, absolutely as soon as possible. I personally was almost hit by a car, at the farmer's market from an out-of-state person turning left with no visibility because cars were parked on both sides on Sunday. And I've seen multiple situations of near misses just right there, and especially during the farmer's market. And it's all faded out. It's literally incomprehensible. So we have a lot of liability when we don't take care of things like that. And I have to say that given the amount of time one of our citizens put into advocating for a safety and a traffic study open the town up to liability. And that these things cannot be waiting much longer.
Thank you. Karen?
So I'd like to comment on that, Elizabeth. So at one point I was talking with V-Trans in Dummerston, Megan Brunk. It is the town's responsibility on a town road to have proper signage. We can update those signs, but given, if we put flashy, like colorful signs up right now, it may add to the confusion. I'm not quite sure how to address the wrong way coming out of the co-op. Clearly there is signage there. I think once somebody turns left, they're committed, and that is a problem. Until we know how that whole area is going to travel, it's hard to put new signage in right now. I can have a conversation with Lenny, talk to V-Trans again, but there will be a lot of signage down there, and it will be confusing for a while. I don't have any other solutions.
Kim, that wouldn't be a V-Trans issue, would it?
No, it's.
They are, it's not, it's a town issue.
Right.
Most of the signage that we will put back up is gonna be state signage to get to 95, Interstate 95 and Route 5.
Right, yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
responding to Elizabeth's concern about the coming out of the parking lot, turning left.
I've seen.
Are they-
No, that is not it's not a liability to the town. Signage is up to not enter into that
I think what
area.
she's saying is one of them is, it is very faded. So if we could, if.
The
we
do
could-
not enter is faded?
Yeah, there's, or the left turn, one of them is faded. Not the do not enter sign, but the one that when you're facing the farmer's market,
Mhm.
there's a sign there that has like, don't turn left, or I can't remember, no left turn or something like that, and it's very faded.
Mhm.
So if we could replace that one with a nice, bright, shiny one.
Yeah.
And then as far as, people are gonna do it anyway, I don't know, electric shock, I've seen people do it. I've seen people wave at them and go, don't do it, and they still just do it. So, I'm not sure how you're gonna get people not to do that, but at least putting up a new sign there, because it really is, you can't read it really.
It might be a conversation with the co-op now that they have that other lot next door. That maybe an entrance be, in a different place.
Sure, but just short term,
yes.
if we could just replace that sign, I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, I had the same experience right there when I was coming off of Route 5, and I saw the person in an out-of-state car come out of the co-op lot and
Mhm.
make a left.
Yeah.
And I was right by the do not enter sign before the road widens out at all, and I just stopped.
Mhm.
And they had to back in, and they figured out that they were not, between me sitting there and the sign,
Right.
it dawned on them they weren't gonna get out that way.
Well, it's the same situation out here,
Oh, yeah.
They're not supposed to go out.
Oh, yeah.
It
To
astounds me that
People do it in Brattleboro over at Pliny Park, they go the wrong way. It's like, how did you do
It
that?
astounds me that people can't understand you can drive around this building.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
So
I just have a question, and I don't need to extend the conversation longer, but is there a reason that the do not enter signs are not at the intersection? They're like 20 feet onto that road? Because if we move those to the intersection, where if you're in the co-op parking lot and you look left and there's two do not enter signs right there, instead of 20 feet back, it would be more prominent. And another sign of, if there's a do turn left and there's do not enter signs right there, instead of where the road actually narrows, if we just made the entire part of that one way, I don't think there's anybody that needs to turn left for those 20 feet where it's not one way. I don't know if that section is not one way, but just an idea
I don't know.
to move those signs up.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a measurement thing, but we can look into that too. That would be simple.
Doug?
I happen to have a photograph of that, exact what she's talking about. There are 4 signs on one post. Somebody's trying to be real efficient. 2 of them you can't read. You can't read the 5 and you can't read, it's just too much in one place. If you were to take those signs and put them in separate places logically, as in nice and shiny, as Eileen has suggested, brand new shiny, because it's faded. I think that might make it a bigger impression, just to put up a couple of different signs very close as you come out to the left.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, our town manager has spoken of administrative convenience, and Ms. Warner has spoken of pedestrian safety. Now, when I helped with the campaign to get crosswalks with warning signs on Putney Road, that was exactly what we were facing. And we were able to prevail because what we emphasized was somebody getting badly injured or killed should not be because an administrator did not want to act. This area in front of the co-op is extremely dangerous from that perspective because, especially when the farmer's market is open, pedestrians are wandering to and fro, and from their perspective, it's a country lane. They're not really paying that much attention to traffic. We really need to make sure that drivers are paying attention there. And by the way, I congratulate Mr. Proctor for having taken care of that the Vermont way. Stop your car and let them figure it out.
They got around to it.
Well, it sounds to me like Karen's on it. I think we should give her a chance to do it. You know, to go and look and have money to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been given a bunch of good, pretty easy suggestions.
Elizabeth? Sorry.
I just thought an inexpensive and additional safety support on Farmers Market Day would be providing some large orange cones that are on the left side. They're not really supposed to be parking, but it could come out a little and sort of draw more attention with the bright color. And then there's the sign that says "Do not turn left," which is not really legible to most people. But this just happened to me, so I felt like it was really important. And I have seen many near misses, and I don't think we should be waiting really much at all.
Thank you, we're gonna look into it.
Great, thanks.
Any other comments?
I have another question about the speed thing. Karen, just out of curiosity, I was looking at Jim Schweitzer's suggestion about the speed cameras in front of the school. What do you know about that as a
Option.
method? Yeah.
What I really like is the ones that can actually produce a ticket.
Well, I think that's what he's saying. He's talking about that.
Yeah.
That it's an automated traffic enforcement.
I can inquire with V-Trans when we look into the signage, and I don't know where to purchase them from and if there's grants for them and the cost. I mean, I can look into it.
Great.
I mean, I think,
I'm curious.
if this is something that may help with speed, maybe we decide on a couple locations and see what happens. I know Newfane has them. They have them on Route 30 in Newfane. So obviously that's a state road, but
Maybe just come back with us with some more information about it.
Sure.
I'm curious.
I will work with Lenny Howard on that.
Are we gonna move on? Okay. Fletcher, you're up. Regulating disposal of solid waste.
Yeah, and this copy, I have not, Mr. Farron raised a very good point about not limiting disposal just to Wyndham Solid Waste Management District facility, and, where Casella might take waste. And which has no revisions have been incorporated in this copy yet. But I'm really more interested in just a sense of the board. Is this a good idea or not? I mean, as I said before, I didn't go to the extreme of daily fines or anything like that. And it is not intended to be, although it was inspired by a particularly egregious dumping ground for tires. It is intended to apply to the whole town and be an ordinance. It's not just intended to impact one site. So I'm really hoping that the select board can give it serious thought and tell me whether this is the way we want to go or not. I mean, I personally am in favor of it because when I looked at it, there's a gap. Obviously, I'm in favor of the ordinance. There's a gap. We fulfill our legal requirement by being a member district of the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District, a member town. And after that, we have no further obligation or, in fact, authority to do anything about people dumping stuff anywhere. And I think that's a problem. I mean, the egregious example demonstrates it's a problem, but, years ago, I had a conversation with a fella at the landfill in Salisbury, Vermont. And he said to me, we were talking about all the new solid waste rules, and he said, a long time ago, they told us we couldn't keep dumping he used a different word, stuff in the woods. So they built dumps, and we started bringing everything to the dumps. Now they're making dumps too expensive to go to. What do they think is going to happen? And I keep remembering that, but it's, there's obviously a balance to be struck between the fact that there's a cost of disposing of solid waste and the person who generates the waste will bear the cost, but, and becoming sort of over the top about it, and I don't know whether I'll press that line. So I'm interested in feedback.
Do you know what the rules are? Is it a state rule that you can't burn trash?
This is state law.
State law, so we wouldn't have to worry. Okay, so you can't burn it, but you can dump it wherever the heck you want. Is that true? Is that true? Statewide?
There must be, there's laws against littering, right? So,
yeah, but there's an illegal dumping sign, fine $500, whatever, on Route 5. And I assume that's a state sign. Just wondering what the state laws are, whether this is like a duplicate of that. I don't have a philosophical problem with this. We have other places that things get dumped in, so sometimes people dump things on Sand Hill Road. People find stuff over the bank on River Road. So I'm fine with it philosophically. I'm just, enforcement is one thing. Who's gonna enforce this? And whether we're duplicating state law.
I couldn't find state law to address it at this level. That's why I say there's a gap. And
Yeah.
I don't know, we can replay Alice's Restaurant.
But this is also in reference to not just public land, but on your own land, you can.
Well, it's not, you can get away with a lot of stuff on your own land. Those tires were dumped not by the landowner. There's people dumping stuff on somebody else's land.
But does this not refer to also dumping on one's private property?
If you're accumulating enough to call it a dump, a solid waste dump,
Right.
yeah, that could be, because that starts to become a health hazard.
Well, it's an interesting intersection between this and the blight conversations that we've had
Yeah.
multiple times in the past.
Yeah. There was something alarmingly aesthetic about that one to me. It was just, I don't like looking at the way you have your property painted, constructed,
Right. So I'm just wondering whether this gets at some of the underlying concerns of that we wanted to see in that.
I think it falls far short of what that proposal was.
Right, but I think it might still get at some of that, the point, I'm liking this if it gets at some of the concerns.
That we have,
minus
yeah.
the aesthetics, but the actual concerns about, garbage being accumulated,
And that's, that then gets into the role of the health officer too.
Right.
Like this might also give some more muscle to the health officer.
I'm wondering if there's, I know this is the least favorite words, but there's a line item in the budget that could be added in the future, that even just small, that could be for support for low-income folks that do have garbage or dump on their property and they actually can't afford to remove it, that where the town could, maybe there's an application process for that, where they could get $800 to move a portion of it, and maybe it's only $3,000 or something like that. It'd be an interesting place to make it more equitable to actually enact and enforce the removal of garbage.
Yeah, that's particularly a concern with the one example, because
Wasn't there
it's so far
trash?
beyond the capacity of the average landowner to deal with something of that magnitude. I mean, we're talking estimated 5,000 to 9,000 tires in there, and it's going to cost you $10 a piece to get rid of them. And you've probably already got a mortgage, so you can't afford to do that. So, yeah, I entirely agree with that. And that's, the argument is always, well, you bought it, but, I don't think people really understand what they're getting into when they inherit something like that.
Fletcher, what does petroscribal mean?
Where are you?
The definition of garbage.
Putrescence.
It's putrescence. It's something that becomes putrid. It's organic matter that's rotting.
I mean, it does the
It's a
thing.
neat word. It's a neat word.
I know, and I'm curious how the state defines solid waste. It all is coming down to the same conversation that we had in conversation about the blight ordinance. Waste means material that has served its original intended use and is normally discarded. Normally by whom? Like what's normal? In somebody's sense of normal, collecting tires is normal, and somebody else's is not.
Antique
So
tire collector.
the use of of words like normal, just I don't know what to make of. I don't know how we would deal with that. But I'm curious because there's a state statute evidently that defines solid waste. I wonder what that definition is.
I should have attached a copy of that. But, most of this is drawn from the definitions in the state statute to begin with. So.
Mr. Farrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a little trouble with the buttons there. I read things like this carefully, and I'm accustomed to reading legal drafting. This is excellently drafted, so I congratulate the drafter on that. There's one, when I'm reading something like this, what I'm waiting for is my saying to myself, what does this mean? And this happened once, and that is under violations D, where it says it shall be unlawful to deposit solid waste of any kind in a municipality-owned or maintained disposal container, other than that created or originated in any public buildings, grounds, highways, or on the person of anyone using said public buildings, grounds, highways. What I'm getting there is there's too many clauses building up that have not been resolved. So when I get to on the person of anyone, I'm wondering, what on earth is waste that is originating on the person of anyone? Now, I assume what that means is, I don't know, I was eating a sandwich and I have the wrapper in my hand, or something like that. So I'm wondering if it may be useful to clarify the D to, legally speaking, it is beautifully drafted, but in terms of the public looking at it, who are not lawyers or crazy people like me who like this stuff, what will they get out of this? Because what we want ultimately is for people to obey the ordinance. So I would suggest in this area that perhaps it be reviewed as possibly to be clarified in terms of how a layperson is going to read it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the intent of that paragraph is really to just tell people you can't just take your 30-gallon garbage bag and throw it into a municipal receptacle. You gotta go take it to the transfer station and pay the $5 to get rid of it. I mean, I think that's really what the intent of it is. But you're right, it's an interesting sentence.
Yeah, so I just took another look at that while Mr. Fairman was reading it, and it did occur to me that it does make it sound like no one can use any of the trash cans that are around.
That's what I was like, I can't put myself ever. It's a town hall trash can.
You're at the gas station and they have this beautiful container, but I can't use it because it's in Putney.
Doug?
What if we took an approach of public health? Mosquitoes like to breed in water that's trapped in tires. And there's probably thousands of, out of the 10,000, whatever, tires that are in the right position to hold water. That could be the reason to, as a public health measure, to mosquito abatement.
Yeah, but I have buckets at my house and they fill up with water when it rains. I mean, where are we gonna draw the line here? That's the difficulty when we start getting down into the nitty-gritties of things like this.
But you've got 1,000 of these down there and they're constantly full of water and they don't dry out. This is a public health matter, I think.
Which we do have a public health officer and a deputy. So I think, and I agree with Doug, when you consider an ordinance, can it be circumvented by another position like the health officer? Because I do know that some of these things in here can be addressed by the health officer. That's their role. So putting an ordinance in place and having enforcement on it is a good question that Eileen has already brought up. So I think you gotta consider both. Can the health officer do most of this?
My response would be, I think it's a stretch, but I also am not troubled by overlapping authority. The fact that the health officer might be able to handle some of this doesn't, to me, say that's a reason why you shouldn't give law enforcement the tool to enforce this. I mean, I think, I agree that the health officer position is a useful position and can be well used to correct a lot of things, particularly with people who are cooperative and who you can maybe approach with a solution in hand. Some people don't work that way.
As we know.
Elizabeth?
A couple of ideas. We've been talking about creating this community capital fund. Maybe because it's a health hazard and affecting adversely housing that should be safe and healthy, we could, expand what the possibilities of this capital fund could do to maybe be matching funds. There's also a lot of money available for brownfield cleanup and the rivers, and maybe it's seeing if we have some, I know we're very short-staffed, but if there's an opportunity to look into grant money as well not even beginning to clean it up. So you could fine someone till Timbuktu, but if they already don't have the money to clean up and then you're fining on top of that, it's like sort of those aggressive credit card companies, you know, just compounding interest. And it's never going to get addressed. It'll just keep swirling around in this room. So it's got to be kind of the carrot and the ordinance, so that we don't have expanding problems with garbage dumping and we have a way to enforce it, but also a way to facilitate owners to get it cleaned up.
Thank you. Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, I'm holding here a handout from Wind and Solid Waste where they explain how free of charge electronics, house paint, batteries, fluorescent bulbs, and prescription drugs can be disposed all around Wyndham County. I'm suggesting that we, in presenting the solid waste ordinance to the public, we pair it with this information plus similar information, such as, for example, when I buy tires for my car, the tire dealer recycles the tires. Now, I assume that happens for everyone. If you change your own tires, I would assume that the tire dealer will take the old tires back and recycle them. So it may be a matter that people just don't know what's available. So my basic suggestion is that we pair the ordinance with making sure that everyone knows what's available, either free of charge or at nominal cost, to get rid of their solid waste so that they're not tempted to dump it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all
Sounds
right.
like we need some more work on this.
Yeah,
Some
I'll
time.
do what I can to translate it into English and ask for it to be on a future agenda.
Thanks.
When I was getting ready to come here tonight, somebody stopped me and was like, "You're Bex, right?" And I said, "Yeah." They're like, "Did you get on the select board?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm about to go right now." And they said, "Well, then another time I want to talk to you about trash because I'm concerned about people dumping trash." And I was like, "Well, would you believe that it's on the agenda for this evening?" They were like, "Oh no," and they just pedaled off. So just letting you know, someone is blissfully unaware but thankful that it's happening.
It's always reaffirming to know the impact that
Elizabeth?
Maybe she didn't put it.
But I just had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, my phone wasn't responding. Is there the other question I had is if there's ever a chance for us to talk directly to there's a couple of violating properties ahead of time as we're creating this ordinance and say we're working on this ordinance. Do you have feedback that might have helped you? You know, if people, it's really important to engage with people the ordinance is going to be directed to, if possible.
Is that something to look into or ponder the idea?
I think the town health officer on it.
Thanks.
We allow the state to handle it.
Oh, well, that always turns out well.
Well,
On South Pine Banks, there was a whole lot of more cars than there used to be, and the state getting involved through the environmental lens, different than the health lens, actually led to a lot of cleanup on that road. So bringing the state in was helpful in that case.
There's another property in town I believe the state's working with.
Yeah.
With the same cleanup.
There's actually more than one property in Putney that the state is working with.
Yeah, they're
And
slow.
thank you for noticing and mentioning that. I think it's important, you know, we are aware of certain properties in town. The state is involved and we kind of let them take the lead.
Yeah.
So,
It's
because-
really above our
yeah,
capacity.
yeah.
All right. Moving on. Public comments, not on the agenda.
You have select board status report update there. I don't know what that means.
Do we have any updates?
I don't know what that is.
Those are from, remember the list?
Yeah, I figured staff's
You know,
update report.
We did do the work session, if you want to talk about that. I mean, when do you want the rules of procedure back on the agenda?
I don't remember it. We had lasagna.
There
It
you
was
go.
great.
So, I mean, basically, it's whatever you're working on is, status report. Rules of procedure, is that coming back up on the agenda?
It's on here for June 11th.
Okay. Are you gonna be prepared?
Oh, God, I hope so.
Okay.
Alright. Public comment not on the agenda. Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to congratulate you and your colleagues on conducting an excellent public forum this evening. This is truly in the spirit of the Vermont Open Meeting Law, so I congratulate and thank you.
Thank you. Do we need an executive session?
I had congratulations too. I love the end of the session of what's going on our next meeting. That's so helpful for the public to keep in mind. If it wasn't on this one, it's really a helpful addition. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I took it from Sue Coakley's
Thank you, Sue.
PC. It is helpful.
We don't need an executive session.
No,
Okay. Does anybody else need
they
one?
always ask me.
Not today.
Like I know.
Alright, next meeting, June 11th, 2025. May I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.